Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thriving Relationship Show. I am your host, Christine Eartheart, founder of the Center for Thriving Relationships. And I am so grateful and excited to have you here and to get to support you in experiencing more love, understanding, and connection in your relationship. And I am so excited about today's super special guest who I know both personally and professionally, who has a very special place in my heart. Dawn Kutza holds a PhD in educational psychology and currently teaches courses on the topics of individual and societal well-being for Indiana University. She brings together her specialties in the areas of applied positive psychology, which is a shared passion of both of ours, human performance, relationships, organizational development, and more. And she does it in her brand new book, which I cannot recommend highly enough. This is so incredible. Hot off the press, Creating Authentic Relationships, a love playbook for the next generation. And Dawn is also a graduate of our Thriving Relationship Coach certification program, which we were so honored and thrilled to have her be a part of. And she also has a 19-year-old son and two huge cats who maybe will make a special appearance if we're lucky. So welcome, Dawn. Absolutely lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Christine. I'm so honored. I feel the same. You and Brett have made an impact in my life for probably the past 15 years. I think I first got introduced to Brett in your work, and you've been a major inspiration. One of the first truly thriving relationships that I think I've ever experienced firsthand. And loved your program, loved your relationship. Huge inspiration for the book too. Couldn't have done it without your program.
Thank you so much for your kind and loving and generous words and for everything that you do in the world. And I can't wait to dive in because I feel like you have a really unique perspective on relationships because you've looked at things through like generationally how we might see things differently. So I'm curious, and just your background, you and I think share passions around the areas of kind of positive psychology and optimal human performance, as well as relationships. And I just adore how you bring those together. And you are teaching the coolest classes at Indiana University. And so let's hear more about what inspired you to create this brand new book. Like, what was the inspiration behind it?
Oh my gosh. So several things. The first, maybe at the deepest level, is just all the crash and burns that I've had in the area of love. I think I was somebody just born to love and love deeply, and always looked for that. I think no matter what I was doing, whether it was school or achievements, travels, it almost looks like everything I did, if I got to the root of it, it was really trying to feel love somehow on some level. And I've had many relationships throughout my life, and often they ended up, even though I love deeply, they did not end up serving me well. They ended in a lot of pain. So I think just in the background, my whole life, I've been thinking about love like all the time, piecing this puzzle together of how do I bring more of it into my life? How do I get better at it? And all the things I think it could do for all of us if we loved healthier, more authentically and deeper. So I think that's been my quest, like my whole life is just love. And the values in action, character, strength assessment, love is my number one value. So I've been single now for 12 years after a 15-year marriage. And during the pandemic, really got to dive into the fields of positive psychology, get some certifications from the Flourishing Center, as well as a coaching certification in positive psychology. Right after that, I ended up in your and Brett's Thriving Relationships certification. And I started realizing that the past 12 years after my divorce was really about me healing myself. So I was getting in relationships that whole time, not what I would consider to be a whole, healthy, happy person. So I went on this journey for 12 years to kind of self-source my own happiness and take that to the highest level that I could. And, but what I had never, and I really felt like probably 3 years ago that I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed. I went to Bali with the women's group with that you led with Matisse. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't get any happier. I can't get any more grateful. Like, I was creating so many good things from that in my own life. So I thought I'll stay single forever. I'll just be single. And then I had an individual enter my life, a man who I opened up to my heart to. And even though that did not work out, I was coming into a relationship for the first time as a happy, whole person, and then experienced actually this love like I'd never experienced before. And it was such a gift. It was such a gift. And I was starting a relationship program at the same time. And I could really look at that for all the gifts it gave me and what I was bringing into it. But then I could also start to see what was not matching, what was not going to be able to be sustainable, why it couldn't be a actual thriving relationship. So I've just been collecting and piecing this puzzle together. And I think that after that relationship ended, I could truly see more of what I brought in, where my healing was, where my partner's healing needed to happen, why we could or could not have a thriving relationship if I was fully ready to get there and do that. And realized I needed still to grow a little bit more. When you're alone for 12 years and you're really happy, it's easier. And you get in relationship with someone else and you realize you might still have work to do, right? Until you're with another person. But I was glad that surfaced and I was able to do some of that last healing work. Not that it ever stops, but I was able to do more of it. And then from it, I just felt like, gosh, I'm here in a way that I've never been before. And I want everyone to not have to go through the trial and error journey that I had to go through to get there. I felt like what I learned from you and Brett in your program was not just what it would look like, the ideal love and relationship and thriving individuals could look like, but I now could see the path that I needed to take from the very beginning to get there. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way I can document this and take people through this path so that they don't have to, and I wanted to write it for younger generation before they got into a long-term relationship that wasn't going to be healthy for them. So I targeted specifically younger generations, maybe Millennials and Gen X in particular, so that they could have the book that I wish I would have had at 18, right? Or 20 or 30 or 40, actually. I wish I could have had it. And so that's how it came about, was I wanted to everything I've been learning and accumulating somehow put together so that everyone could maybe end up having the love that I'd always looked for, that I'd always hoped for, that I really truly believe we can create with each other.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And love being like your core value and strength. It just completely matches everything that I know about you. And being in your presence is just being in this like energy field of the heart. You just emanate love and are so kind and caring. So it doesn't surprise me that your life has become focused on love and wanting to support people and being able to really experience the kind of love that, nearly all of us long to really have, and that you used your own journey, just like learning and growing from every single different relationship and experience. And now that you're offering that up to be like, I just really hear it being like proactive to create the solid foundation really from the start. And I get that from your book, the self-reflection you're inviting people to do. So,
yeah, Christine, if I can say one more thing about that, I work in the business school primarily, but also in different parts of campus. But I remember being on that achievement track, that thinking my worth was very much tied to my degree or the job that I had or the salary or, the organization's affiliations that I had. And really under all that, I was just looking for love and acceptance and belonging. And I see the students in college, especially in the business school, sometimes spending so much time and energy and defining their worth based on those achievements and based on, I think I guess my heart goes out to them. And because when I get to talk to them, I get to see into their hearts a little bit more outside the classroom, especially. And I guess I want them to lean into the fact that love and relationships are just as important. And at the end of the day, maybe more important than the other achievements that they're going towards. But I don't see them spending the same amount of time and energy on their relationships. I see them getting certifications and joining organizations and building networks and building up professional skills. And I'm sure those things will help them strengthen their confidence in themselves and find fulfilling lives. But I just feel like I see this whole core gap missing with their human experience, which would be, really thinking about how they're going to create this juicy love and energy and positivity in their life outside of work, but in their personal relationships. So I want to find a way to inspire them to go over and more into that realm.
It's so true. And I think it's true for us at any age, for anybody tuning in, just to really reflect on, how much time we spend maybe studying or training for the profession that we're in, or for a hobby that we love, or whatever it might be. And even just learning how to cook or how to garden, or lots of trainings we do oftentimes if you are in a career. And yet how much time have we really invested in the area of our life that tends to be either the most important or right there at the top, our relationship. So I love that is part of your message, is that this is so important. Most people would say that, this is so important. And in order to really succeed at that, we need to learn more about it and really nurture that part of our lives. So such an important message.
What I thought was so interesting, I did some work. Jean Twenge does some intergenerational research work, and she had posted a book about the different generations. And I've been, reading more and more about how Gen Z in particular, some of them don't want to get married at all. And my son, who's wonderful, is 19. And I would ask him and some of his friends what they thought about relationships. And a lot of his female friends would say, yeah, I don't want to be burned, maybe in my 30s, I want to find myself. I want to establish, my career. I want to make sure I'm financially stable first. It's like they've separated their happiness. Totally. And that they have to, with the love and the relationship piece, which I think is partially a rebound, right? From people who didn't think about that at all, married too young without thinking about it and lost themselves, right? And I think they're looking at the past generation saying, I don't want what my parents had. My mom didn't seem happy. My dad didn't seem happy. Their relationship wasn't the thriving, exciting life that I would want. And so I would ask some of his friends, is it that you don't want love and relationship, or is it that you don't want to lose yourself in love and relationship? So if I could tell you that you could be in a relationship and still keep your authentic, thriving self going, would you want it? And they would say, oh, well, yeah, of course I would want that, right? They assume that relationship means lose yourself. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I, really do think about how do you create this container in a relationship that allows both individuals to actualize their highest individual authentic self with compromise, with compromises that they believe have enough value for them, that it's worth those kinds of compromises, and get them thinking about that younger. Another ironic thing is, where do you meet more people in your life, your age, that are interesting on probably a similar path or values path than in college? It's so much harder. I talk to the millennials to meet people once they've graduated and gone out in their 30s. It's hard to meet people. But everybody's just kind of treating their 20s like the hookup phase, and, just go, I'm not going to even look or practice those skills or really try to make it meaningful or try to make it authentic or use it to grow within. And I think it could be a missed opportunity if they can't find a way to integrate their journey of love earlier, when they're around all these people that they could be drawing into their lives in college.
Yes. Okay. I love it. Let's talk about that because I know you go over kind of mate selection. And so anybody that's out there right now who is dating, and I think it's probably fascinating even for people that are in relationship, but right, if you are a millennial or you are in Gen X, but really anyone who is out there dating, and your book, you go into a bit of like, what are some of the mistakes that we might make as we're looking for mate selection? So let's go over some of the mistakes, and then instead some of your recommendations. If we're out there looking for someone, why do we sometimes not actually choose somebody who's ultimately going to be capable of being in a thriving relationship with us? And how do we shift that?
Yes. And I love that. And I have to go back, which is why the first half of the book is actually, I realized it's weighted, like the whole first half is basically about coming to know yourself first and having yourself sort of healed, and knowing what you really value in life so that you're on your authentic path. That way, when someone comes in, you can sense if they're throwing you off or bringing you closer to the path that you've defined for yourself, that means authenticity and joy for you. So I would say that, having that first piece, no matter which way I sliced it, it had to be in there, and people really have to do the work. But I think once you know what you want and what would make you happy, and I've realized throughout my life that part of it is deconstructing or detangling yourself from a lot of the cultural messages that it's all achievement or that it's money or status or success, But if you can get yourself to the place where you are sensing your own worth and your own capabilities, I look at it this way. Like if you were to write down honestly and objectively all the things that's awesome about yourself, and I wasn't able to do that until my late 40s. I wasn't able to do that. Like I really struggled. I don't think I could have done that. So, I'm trying to help them be able to see themselves and work through that. But if you wrote down all the awesome things about you, and that's all the stuff you have to offer the world, you should at least try to find a partner that is as exciting and enriched and, that kind of matches you energetically, matches your higher values, matches your highest goals, who really values love and their own authenticity and growth, right? So I think so many times I almost called this book a college girl's guide to finding love and not settling for crumbs, because it felt like I had always just heard these really brilliant, light women with all this radiance and, energy settling for what Cynthia Dennis called a moon, which was sort of a person who's just kind of a static rock out there that the woman had to shine her light on to get him to shine. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, I just know so many amazing women. I just know so many amazing young college women that just are lit up from the inside. And they were kind of ending up propping the guy or encouraging the guy or helping the guy grow or trying to inspire, trying to motivate. So I'm diverging a little bit here, I realize, but what I kind of made me think of was I didn't want to call the book that, because I know young men now in this generation who are generating their own light differently now, who are wanting to talk about mental health and toxic positivity, and who, are more heart driven, right? They're more willing to be vulnerable. So I thought that's really unfair to assume that women are always going to settle for crumbs. I think this generation is much better at wanting to step up and actually lean into the more of the creation piece and the giving back piece, and and just it's a matter of energizing them and allowing the men to do that work. But I think fundamentally, if a woman's coming from this place where she can see her full radiance, then she should choose a partner who doesn't take that from her in any way. That when she's with him, he is on board to support her radiance, just like she would be to support him. So it's almost hard to quantify that. So I go into some of sort of energetic, like do a checklist and see around this person, how does they make me feel? And, if I give this much, are they giving this back? Like just this inequality, so that if you want to maintain your authenticity, you have to have authenticity to maintain. You have to have your own radiance that you're holding on to. And then when you choose someone, it's really more about choosing somebody who wants to support you on your path to that.
Yeah.
I love than a checklist.
Yeah. I hear that is like such a high value in what you've kind of discovered, is that being in a relationship where we're able to be authentic, or we are able to maintain the full expression of who we are while in partnership. If that is so important, which absolutely, then it would be, and a really important part of when we're looking for who's going to be a good match for us, to find like, okay, do I feel met? Is there this reciprocity? And particularly, so for anybody, to really reflect on, if you're dating right now, like, will they support the full shining of my light? So are they shining their light is a question, but also it's like, do they allow, maybe even more importantly, are they supporting and enhancing my experience of being the full expression of who I am? And not because sometimes it's just not a match, not because anybody's failing to do that, but just to find someone that we become even more of who we are in our togetherness.
Yes. And so now back to your original question, I'm so sorry, is the things we do that kind of get us down the wrong path is, I think, if we are still attached to achievement and status is the way to happiness, then we will look for partners and be attracted to their achievement and their status. Okay. So that could look differently for different people, but you traditionally hear, oh, the man has to be 6'2", make 200,000, be, beefy. I don't know. This is not my ideal guy, so I have trouble like defining that. But you hear things about where they need to work or just the outside characteristics. And I've always thought, that's so interesting, because sometimes there's just a double-edged sword to people's characteristics on the outside. A person who spends that much time in the gym, do you know what I mean, to look that way, might not be, and there's just no judgment to anybody who spends time in the gym, by the way. Just think it through, a thought experiment here. But maybe that means that they're very attached to their own image and their own body, to the extent that they also expect you to have a very high status that way, or that they just don't have the time and energy. I mean, it could come with other things. There could be a downside if they're too, or if you want someone who makes $200,000 a year, are you willing for them to never be home, like, with you? And so many people who want that kind of money, then they want it for a lifestyle, can't even travel, So is it that you want the money, or is it that you want to be able to enjoy your lives together? Then untangle whether or not the money is what's required to enjoy your life together. I personally dated some men that made a lot of money, but didn't have any expendable income because they spent it faster than they made it. So, and then they worked so much they couldn't even enjoy some free time, and they were stressed a lot of the time. Like, they just couldn't be present. They were always attached to the phone. They just couldn't be present, right, with me. So I kind of started thinking, why I should untangle these expectations I have, or things I think will make me happy, with whether or not that's truly going to get me where I want to be in that relationship. And I've come to think that just attention and presence with another partner, wanting to actually enjoy your present and create moments together, to me, that's where it's at. So anything that gets in the way of that, for a person I'm kind of leery of, I would probably say those are kind of deal breakers. If I can't get the person's genuine attention and presence, and I don't feel valued and seen and enjoyed and delighted in their presence, then it doesn't matter what they make. It doesn't matter really how good they look. It doesn't matter, I also just kind of think too, it's funny, a lot of women think, oh, I want to feel safe with a man, a bigger guy. But to me, I'm not being chased by tigers that much anymore, or, burning buildings and things like that. I mean, sure, I don't know if a bigger guy could save you from that anyway, but what I really want is psychological safety, right? And psychological safety comes not from physical prowess in any way. So it's just interesting when you start to unthread those. So part of the book is to ask individuals, and then in the workshops I want to have, we can go even deeper into that, because that's a lot of work there. The messaging, what we've paired with being attractive or not, it needs to be unpacked and unraveled, and you need to get to the core.
Gosh, I love that, Dawn. It feels like it's such an important practice for people that are dating as well as those in relationships. So what I'm hearing is like taking some moments. So if you're just dating, taking some moments to get clear on what matters most to you, and maybe just kind of unconsciously write, or like, what are all the things I'm looking for? And then even look at like, where does that come from? And is that something that is actually sustaining? Is that really what matters most to me? Because if we're just, drawn to someone for the same things that we've looked for in our own lives, it really only offers fleeting happiness. It is more an illusion versus some of the things that, are not quantifiable, like someone who is kind or growth oriented or offers security, those kinds of things. So I love that feels such an important, powerful exercise in getting to know, like, okay, what values most to like the deepest, truest parts of my being. Yes. And then also though, if you're in a relationship, because I think that sometimes those old blueprints that we have about relationships, about who we thought we were going to be with, or once wanted to be with, or fantasized about being with, when we're in a partnership and maybe we're like, well, I think we have a good relationship, but gosh, there's still that nagging feeling that maybe you sold yourself short, or you're not living up to what you once thought you were going to experience in a relationship. Sometimes it's because we're holding on to an old, outdated blueprint about what we thought we wanted. And it's actually not what it would have ever worked, but it can create a lot of pain. I find with working with people over the years, a lot of pain when your partner doesn't match that, when actually the partner in front of you is what we needed all along, but it's not what our minds thought we wanted. So I would just encourage anyone, what Dawn is saying here, this practice is not just for people dating, but also to do a little check-in. And of course, we can also create these kinds of things. And so how do we create a relationship, right? Where if we don't feel like we have the full expression of who we are, how can we really shift? And maybe we explore that, because you talk about that authenticity piece, right? You're saying that's kind of a deterrent for some people. Like, I don't want to get into a relationship. I'm just going to lose myself. And of course, there's some derogatory expressions like the old ball and chain, things like that. Or even there can be something so endearing, right, about the expression of my other half. And then other people that are like, oh, we want to come as two wholes. And so let's speak to this though. Like, if someone is in a relationship, entering a relationship, thinking about a relationship, any tips you have for how we really preserve our true selves? Like, how do we stay connected to ourselves when we're in a partnership or we're considering somebody else's feelings and needs? And
Yes. Oh, Christine, you said so many good things. Okay. There was one thing I want to go into, so don't lose that question. It was about growth, because I do feel like I need to clarify something. I have met a lot of individuals who say growth is not the most important thing for them. And I'm kind of a growth crazy person. Like, I love growth. I would lean into growth. I feel like it's part of like the psychologically rich life that you can create, But I've also met people that say, you know what? I like to grow, but not that much. Growth is grow in measured ways, grow in my own domains. I don't want to do like that much inner work, And I think that's totally fine if that's where your heart is and you're at on your journey, or that's the journey you are going to continue to be on. I think what is hard is when one person wants to grow and continue growing and the other person doesn't. I found with a lot of these sort of compatibility elements, it's just, you need to be on the same kind of wavelength with them and the same expectations for them. If one person wants to continue growing hardcore, what I found at least was that you outgrow each other. You just outgrow where you can't, stay on the same wavelength with each other. And sadly, the person who's growing, I think, 9 times out of 10 will sort of lose respect for the person who feels stuck. It's hard. You can try to motivate that person to grow and inspire them to see the best in themselves and, get them to do the inner work and love them along the way. But that's exhausting. At the end of the day, that's kind of exhausting if you fundamentally are with a person who doesn't want to grow. So I've met people before, like, no, we're really happy where we're at. Neither one of us really want to grow that hard. But I would say that's a great match. Like, that's fine. No judgment. Like, they're compatible, right? So there's also this matching element to things that I think is just important, be it spirituality, too. it's fine if both people aren't spiritual, and it's fine if, if a person's spiritual. It's just you want to be with somebody who's like you, either you both value it this way or you both value it that way. It's hard. So your question, sorry, I wanted to clarify that, because I never want to sound like I'm assuming relationships have to be hardcore growth all the time for them to be thriving. Would you ask it again for me, Christine?
Yes. So how do we preserve our sense of self? How do we preserve our authentic self, whether we are just starting to date or someone right now that they're like, I've been with my partner for 40 years. Maybe they even feel like they've lost that. But yeah, let's talk about how do we really come back home to ourselves and make sure that we're really staying true to ourselves.
Okay, that is awesome, because that was something that I couldn't do in relationship myself. So I admit it. I was not able to or capable of that. It wasn't until I found myself first after the divorce, I was able to kind of say, well, so who am I? Like, I've always defined myself based on relationships. And it was kind of insidious, but however that partner loved me. So if whatever they mirrored to me became what I believed my reality was. So if they saw me as grumpy, then I thought I must be grumpy. Like, or if they saw me as delightful, I'd say, oh, I must be delightful. Like, I had no inner core of myself that I could have articulated. So I realized that I had to find that core, develop that core, see that core, kind of, I hate to say it, love myself, find myself, discover myself, and what would be authenticity to me outside of a relationship before I could kind of come back into one and then maintain my authenticity with a partner who would support it. So I think you would be better to answer this question because about how to maintain authenticity if you're with somebody and maybe you're still discovering your authenticity, right? Or you're young and you're allowing each other to form, sort of influence, right? The person that you're going to become. I've not been yet fortunate enough to partner with somebody who helped me develop beyond what I could have seen for myself. Journey, like, that actually helped me, like, maybe added some things to myself that I wouldn't have said, and encouraged me, like, who's made me more than, right, than I could make myself. But I know you and Brett have a special relationship. Maybe you could speak to that. I would love to hear it.
Well, thanks for asking. And I think what you're saying, I'm so happy to share. And what you're saying, this is a profound piece of it, though. It is a vital piece of it, is that it's so hard for someone else to help us preserve this part of ourselves if we're not even sure what it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like that's part of our opportunity, before a relationship, in a relationship, to always be doing that inner journeying. Because if we aren't deeply tethered to our innermost selves, it can be so easy just to perceive ourselves through the lens of somebody else. And I love what you said. I could like feel how, I know there are people out there that is resonating, that you just really spoke an experience that they're having, is that how other people see us, we begin to believe that we are that. I mean, we are social animals. So we're continually looking to others to see, like, am I okay? Am I safe? Am I enough? Do I belong here? We're doing that from the moment we come into this planet. And so, of course, unless we have really done that inner work to get clear on our own essence, our own values, what lights us up, our own unique strengths, our own unique calling, all of those things at the center of our being. And even if we know that it's still, I find it's very helpful to be around people who are, seeing me and seeing us as who we believe our true selves as. So we can all really help each other in that. So anyway, I love that. And that is such an invitation to anyone, is to do that inner journeying to make sure that you know who you really are, because it will be exponentially easier for your partner to support that when you can really be a stand for that yourself. And in relationships, so many things. I love the message of Dr. David Schnark. So he wrote Passionate Marriage, and he's really looked at what keeps passion alive in long-term love. And the number one thing that he found is differentiation. So very connected to this. So the opposite of that would be enmeshment. Enmeshment is when we get confused. We don't really know where we end, the other person begins. Differentiation is when we really support each other in being our wonderfully unique selves. And I just love that word that has come in so handy in my own relationship. Because when we're in partnership, it's so easy. Innocently, we do this. All of a sudden, we have opinions about what our partner says or does or wears or how they cut the cantaloupe or how they park or how they spoke to that person on the phone, like just opinions about all sorts of things. And so it is like a little mantra. Like I'll just say to myself, I see Brett doing something in his own perfectly wonderful, unique way that might just simply be different from how I would do it. And I feel this impulse to like offer him another suggestion. I realize like differentiate, like to do it whatever way delights him. So yeah, I think differentiation is one really powerful way to ensure that we give each other space to do things in our one-of-a-kind, unique way. And then really those things that are most important to us, save those so they don't get diluted with having so many opinions and so many feelings and perspectives that we want to share with our partner. And I think just doing regular check-ins, because like you mentioned, it's like especially people that are growth oriented, but really any of us, like we change so much over the course of a relationship. So if you're with someone, perhaps for decades or even years, we're forever changing and growing and evolving. And relationships really are, it's about committing and recommitting over and over and over again throughout the duration of a relationship. And it's about getting to know one another over and over and over. I mean, it's something that I've been so aware of. So Brett and I have been together for over 20 years now, and we're working with couples. We see this all the time. It's like, who am I now? And how easy it is for me. Like I'll maybe perceive Brett in an old, outdated way. And so a question that Brett and I are continually asking each other, it's like, who do you want to be seen as now? And it's a question I love asking couples, especially if they've done healing work together. Especially after we all make mistakes and we aren't our best selves in moments. Like we don't want to be perpetually seen as that, because we become more of that. And so after a couple has done some degree of healing, I will invite them to ask each other, who do you want to be seen as now as you move forward? Because it is so powerful about how we become more of how we're seen. And so Brett and I, that is something we really aim to keep a close pulse on, to see each other who we are and who we're growing into, not just these past iterations of who we've been. So, and just to, of course, support each other and just to trust, it's the most sustainable thing. It can be scary sometimes, especially if our partner is getting into something that we were not into, and our fears that we might get left behind or they're going to be connecting with other people and not us. And so just to have those deeper, more vulnerable conversations, because I think when we feel scared, it's really easy to make our partner wrong for getting into this, for being a certain way, instead of just sharing, gosh, I feel scared right now that you're pursuing that because I'm scared it's going to bring us apart. And then you can get to the heart of what's really there, rather than the partner then feeling like, we're holding them back. Because that's actually not going to work anyway. So anyway, I'll pause there. Various things. Thanks for exploring this with me.
I love it. And I'm making notes. You're schooling. I love it. It reminds me of it. What do they call it? Individuating with a child. Like as my son has been going off to college, I've been practicing when he wants to do things on his own, not taking that as I don't want to do them with you, but thinking he's getting to have his full freedom and agency in life. And this is exactly what I meant for him to do this whole time, the whole purpose. So I like that. And I like that you say, relationships too, they're messy and they're hard and we stumble. So I keep thinking there's got to be this kind of core. And I think commitment is huge, right? Once you've done, and I try to get there in the book, it's a hard journey to get to in a book, but once you've found a person that you believe has this core of enough substance and similarities and compatibilities and heart and like these inner things, and I would almost argue then commit. Like it's the hard thing to do, but perhaps there's a moment at which you can't keep exploring the perfect, for the perfect situation, but commit. And then a different level of work begins for the both of you. But if both people have your highest intentions for each other in mind, then you're sort of surrendering to this trust. You're going to be in this space together where now you know, you don't have to worry fundamentally if this is the right person for you. You are in it. They have shown up, you're showing up, and now you get to go on life journey together, right? Job changes, moves, children, you know, and all those things are going to make the relationship a bit turbulent, right? And I love the check-in. And I love just remembering that's the part that I haven't been able to experience like the way that you and Brett have. It would be the thing that I think, you know, I'm most hopeful or most would delight in the most at this point. Like I'm not giving up hope that I could experience something like that. I just think it is beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. And is the part that you can't do on your own. I mean, I love being single. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to settle, but there's definitely something about a relationship that you just can't give yourself the same stuff fully. And I'm okay to say that. Like, I'm okay to say I love being single, but that would I want a relationship someday like that? Yes.
Yeah. I am still holding that vision with you. Yeah. Beautifully put. So I'm curious about, because you have this unique lens of different generations, and, you know, when we're even training coaches in our certification program, I think that's like an important lens sometimes if we're supporting someone else to realize that things are, unique, to kind of meet the client where they are, right? Because there could be something unique to their generation, because there are these different values, of course, that are not universal, but that are really common in different generations. So any insights you have, like, what have you seen that's different from generation to generation? Any of the distinct differences? I think for even people to identify in themselves, like, oh yeah, that's totally me. And maybe to understand even their kids who might be dating now.
Yes. Well, I've kind of thought a lot. Some of this is more of my own intuition around these topics after studying them, kind of patterns I would look at. But, you know, there was a book came out by Peggy Ornstein, I believe, called Cinderella Ate My Daughter. And it was a few, decade or two ago. And I think that the millennials who are about age 28 to mid to late 30s, they very much grew up with a lot of Disney and the princesses and the Prince Charmings and the kind of a lot of hope. We hadn't had the Great Recession so much yet. Like that generation still very much has the rom-com, you know, I'm going to be swept off my feet. There's a soulmate. I'm a princess. You know, we need to have this huge marriage, this huge wedding. You know, all that just seems like that is still pretty pervasive in that generation, the millennials. And then there was sort of, you look at Gen Z, who's now 27 and below. They seem to be a little more jaded when I talk to them, a little bit more jaded about that. They're like, yeah, we don't really buy that Disney stuff. We've seen the recession. We know, that, you know, we have to worry about the economy, and we want authenticity and, social media. They've just been baked in that, as well. I think that whereas I write a lot about social media in the book because it's become such a part of our human experience. I think it's taking away from our authenticity. It's stealing some of that, because if you think about it, if you're spending so much time curating your moments, curating for an audience, you're not living what you would just do in that moment. So then you're starting to imagine yourself and curate a version of yourself for the outside that will get you likes. So to me, that's kind of a fracturing of our authenticity a little bit. And I feel like the Gen Z, at least some of the people I'm talking to, are getting that they want, that social media is harming their authenticity a bit. They're kind of opting out of it more and more. So I think too, they're also really ready to say, I would have a child and not get married. Like, I don't think the marriage is a necessity. And I think it's silly to waste a bunch of money on a wedding, you know, with all this stuff. So they seem to be changing into more, in general, the ones that I've pulled, and I'm always like asking, you know, my students and asking for people, I think they are wanting, this to find their highest selves and be able to maintain that authenticity in a relationship. And then it's very experiential based. And I think the money is not as important for them. And, you know, they want to be safe and secure, but I don't know that the stuff, seems to matter as much as what I had heard and reflected back to me, and maybe the millennials who came through, like I mentioned earlier, a better time economically, and sort of some of the cultural media and elements that were happening when they were young. So yeah, I don't know. I think this generation, I'm so excited for them because they're so self-aware,
Right.
so young. If you think about what it takes on Maslow's hierarchy to self-actualize, they're like starting from such a better place in some respects, that I think the journey that they're on, they could get so far. I mean, Christine, I spent my 20s, 30s, and some of my 40s healing and unpacking all the cultural crap that had been keeping me on going on the treadmill. And I feel like they're kind of deconstructed a little bit already. They're starting from like, what's the path to authenticity? How do I get there? There's less noise for them. They can see it as noise. And so I feel like they have a chance to create truly authentic, vibrant, meaningful relationships, without maybe going through so many of the patterns. That's my highest hope for them.
I love that. And my goodness, you are just one of the beacons who is here to support them. And I see that there's like a level of consciousness about self and even the world, and a lot of like the illusions just falling away. And so big cheers to this generation, what they're going to have to teach us about relationships. And I love your sense of hopefulness about what's going to be available for them.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
There's so many things that I just want to hear about from you. So for people that are interested in hearing more, where can people follow along? Where can they find your book? What do you have coming up?
Yes. Okay, great. I'm just about to launch a sort of free workshop to let everyone know about a series of workshops where essentially I'm going to take the book, and it's broken down into different parts of the journey, and there'll be 4 or 5 different workshops within each section of the journey. So people could take like one part of the journey, they could hop in the adventure, hop out. Maybe they're ready for the next piece. They're really feeling good about themselves, but they just want the partner piece. Finding the right partner. Is this the right partner for me? Or maybe they're in a relationship, they're in a young relationship. And I know so many adorable young couples, and they want to start, really get the foundation going, and maybe learn to get into each other's strengths and thriving and things like that, just to make their relationship better. So they can hop in and off, on and off the journey or adventure, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just about to launch those. Those will probably be in October, mid-October to November. You can find more about that when they're ready to go on flourishinlove.com. And flourish has a dash in dash. There's just a dash between. flourishinlove.com. And the book is available on Amazon. So if they want to get started, we'll actually be using the book, which is nice because I don't know about you, but I might buy a workbook and start it, but not finish it. I mean, this is a great way, like accountability, do it in a group, receive some one-on-one coaching, dive deeper, really like let the information sink in and integrate it. They could do the book alone. Absolutely. If they're self-motivated, I think it would take them very far. But I like the idea of bringing people together in a community and doing it together. Right.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's what I'm super excited to start soon.
Oh, thank you for doing that. It really is like the amount of suffering that we can prevent through people following this path that you've laid out so beautifully. So is there anything else? There is so much you cover in the book. You are a wellspring of wisdom and knowledge. Is there anything else that's on your heart that we didn't get to that just feels like a really fundamental piece of your work, of this book, of your discoveries about relationships?
I would say one thing that surprised me is when I put the book out, the number of people who were older, who had been in marriage, who said that this book was so helpful for them because it helped them understand why they've been on the same journey I've been on, the crash and burn, trial and error, relationship, love, marriage journey. And then seeing this is kind of like what I've been embodying from the lessons I learned from like your program, to just see why that did it. Sometimes we've gone through it. Now we need to start over the journey and kind of come back at it. So I think this book, what surprised me was when I thought about it through that lens, I was like, yeah, it would really help. If I got this book myself at 50, this would be healing for me. This would help me find myself again. This would help me get ready for any future relationships and understand, finally forgive myself for why my past relationships didn't work and weren't going to work. So I've had quite a few women, a handful, to me, that was a lot, it was surprising, that have said that this book has also helped heal them. So I just like to offer that out there, that it's, I think it's a sanity check. It was for me to put it together, So that might be the last little piece. Is anyone who would want to talk or explore these kinds of things are welcome. I would love to do that with anyone, anywhere on the journey.
I love that. It is so illuminating and validating and healing when we suddenly have a language, like when there's somebody else like your book and we read somewhere like, oh my gosh, that gives me words and a vocabulary to understand my experience. And if that exists, it must mean this is like much more universal. It isn't just me. And so it just organizes our thoughts instead of just being this kind of tangled blur, and makes sense of it. And so
yeah. And the whole first part of the book is just what I've been doing in the last 12 years to really source my own happiness as much as possible, and really, find that core I said I couldn't have described before. And I want everyone to have that and feel that, whether they're in a relationship or not. It's not too late to really integrate and fortify your love for yourself. So
it is the most important relationship we have. And I know one of the things that you really lead with and that we really share a belief in is like our own health, and primarily our emotional, our mental, our spiritual health is directly correlated to the health of the relationship. And so how important it is that we are continually nurturing our own hearts and minds and bodies and spirits. So thanks for being an ambassador for that. So Dawn, one question I love to ask people, since this is the Thriving Relationship Show, to you, what is, like in a sentence or two, what is a thriving relationship?
Oh gosh, I would say when two people really value love as a value. So that's maybe one of their higher values, is love and relationship. And they want to spend the time, energy, in togetherness to create their best authentic lives, together, and sort of have each other's highest intentions, to create something beyond what they could create on their own. So, if each person could sort of self-source their own happiness and find their own authenticity, and then meet a partner who would want to also do that for themselves and help their partner, kind of like what we've spoken to before, I feel like then they just delight in the life they create together. This might be a little bit of a fantasy on my part, but I just keep thinking, what if there was somebody who just was excited about love and creation and then loving a child, bringing, like, what could your life be if you both were able to keep each other healthy and support each other on that journey, and then you put your full creative energy into creating the best life together for yourself and for others and beyond. I think that would be like the ultimate. The ultimate.
That's definitely the version of like the 1 + 1 equals way more than it was, like exponential, the upward spiral of what we can be when we come together with that orientation. Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Dawn. It is just a pure delight always to get to connect with you.
Thank you, because you and Brett have just been inextricably linked to this journey for me, and such a beacon and source of inspiration the entire time. Yes, I am just so honored, but I have to thank you both. Thank Brett too for all the abundance that's in my life, especially around this book. in my journey, because you two have supported and made it possible, and been a role model. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, it is such an honor and joy, and we adore you, and go team. Thank you for everything that you teach us and inspire in us and for the world. So glad that we get to all do it together. So love you, Dawn. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out Dawn's book. Of course, we'll link to it below, and just wishing you all so many blessings on the journey of love ahead. Want more support for your relationship, or want to become trained as a certified relationship coach to help other couples? We warmly welcome you to head on over to centerthrive.com. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time on the Thriving Relationship Show.